When deciding upon taking out a loan, it's very important that you should go out there and compare the different lenders that are available and what they have to offer to determine which loan is actually going to be best fitting your needs. So it can be very confusing to do so though. It's one of those things that different loans have different loan structures. They have different fee structures and things like that. So whilst you want to choose a loan that's got a very low interest rate, it can be sometimes deceptive because fee structures and things like that can actually impact on, which loan you should actually choose to take. Hence the reason why we're going to have a look at comparison rates today. But we're also going to have a look at where comparison rates in and of themselves isn't necessarily adequate to determine which loan you should actually take out. Now, comparison rates by law have to be included in advertisement from lenders, which help give a better comparison between loans of different lenders. Now, it's a step-by-step calculation, and knowing how to calculate the comparison rate yourself can be very, very useful. So the step-by-steps in front of me, essentially, you're going to start by adding any initial fees, such as establishment fees and all that, to the principal themselves. Then we're going to calculate the repayments required to repay the principal plus the initial fees, the upfront costs of the loan. And then you're going to add any regular fees, such as service fees, monthly fees or whatever it is on your loan, to the repayments that you have to make, because you've got to include them in your repayments in step 2. And then finally, you can now calculate the comparison rate by calculating the interest rate, such as the repayments that you calculated in step 3 only repay the original principal. So that's something that we're going to go through. It can be very confusing when you just initially look at that. I'm going to work through an example of how you actually go through this to help break this down so you can understand it. But it might be worthwhile pausing this so you can record that step by step so you can follow along when I go through an example. So I think it's really, really important to note, if an account has no fees and no charges, that's fantastic, but if it doesn't, the comparison rate is actually going to be equal to the nominal rate of interest of the loan. The nominal rate being the interest rate that the loan states that it has. All right, so let's have a look at examples so we can start to break this down and start to understand it a little bit more. So let's say we're trying to calculate the comparison rate of a loan that's worth $415,000 over 25 years, and we've narrowed it down to the following 3 options. We've got loan A here that is 6.39% per annum compounding monthly, that has no setup fees and no monthly fees or monthly repayments, although this is negotiable. We're going to talk about that in a moment. So if we think back to this, if there are no fees and charges, the comparison rate is equal to the nominal rate. Now, the nominal rate is what's here. These are all nominal rates of interest. So immediately for loan A, we know that the comparison rate is going to be the same as the nominal rate. So comparison rate is going to be equal to 6.39% per annum. Nice and simple. I like it when it's like that. All right. However, when we start looking at loan B and loan C, whilst they've got lower rates of interest in comparison to loan A, they have fees. And we've got to take this into account when we're starting to compare it. So loan B has a 6.35% interest rate that's compounded quarterly with a setup fee of $650 and has quarterly repayments. And loan C has 6.33% per annum, compounded monthly with an establishment fee of $600 and a service fee of $12 per month with monthly repayments. So you can see here, they're obviously lower, but they have fees and don't have flexible repayments, which is, like I said, we're going to talk about after we look at these comparison rates. So let's take loan B to begin with and calculate the comparison rate of loan B. So I'm going to probably be squished of space here eventually because it's a bit of a process. So let's go back to this so we can look at the first step. So step 1 says add any initial fees, such as the establishment fees, to the principal. So loan B has a setup fee of $650. So we're actually going to be starting with this N, I, PV, PMT, FE, P, Y, and C, Y, and working through this. So we're adding any initial fees, such as the setup fees, the $650, to the original loan. So essentially, our present value, it's going to be positive because we're taking it from the bank, is going to be $415,000 plus the $650. So $415,650. Now we start working through this to calculate the PMT, which I think is what step 2 says. Calculate the repayments required to repay the principal plus the initial setup fees. So we're doing a PMT calculation. So the interest rate here is 6.35%. The N, we've got to be very careful. These are quarterly repayments. So the N is going to be a 25-year loan, 4 repayments per year. The future value, we're repaying the entire loan. The payments per year is also 4 because it's quarterly repayments and compounding 4 times per year. So now we need to get the PMT, which is going to be, let's just whack this in. So 25 by 4, 6.35, 415, 650. 0 and 4s. So we get a payment that is negative $8,320.75 approximately. So now we look at the next step. Now, obviously not all these steps are always included in every single time. So step 3 says add any regular fees, such as a service fee, to the payments in step 2. So here's our payments from step 2. All right, so now we're looking at, are there monthly fees or quarterly fees in this case? In this case, there aren't. There's none mentioned. So we don't need to do anything for step 3. This is our payments that we're using. So let's look at step 4 now. Step 4 says calculate the interest rate, such as the repayments in step 3, repay only the original principal. Okay, and this is going to be our comparison rate. So we're basically doing another one of these. So NI PV, PMT, FV, PY, and CY. So we're essentially saying here that our principal is going to be the original loan. So the present value is going to be just the $415,000 rather than the $415,650. And our PMT we now know. So the PMT is a negative $8,320.75. Our interest rate is what we're calculating here. When we calculate this, this will be the comparison rate. So N is still at 25 by 4. All right, future value of repaying the lot, and these are still both 4. So now when we calculate the interest here, this is our comparison rate. So change that back to that. And we now find the comparison rate is approximately 6.37% per annum. So we might just quickly write under so we know, therefore, comparison rate of loan B is approx 6.37% per annum. All right, so that's the step-by-step of going through and calculating this if there was a setup fee, but there was no monthly fee. So let's go and look at loan C because there's both a setup fee and a monthly fee. So what changes here with loan C is step 3. So step 1 is still the same in that, let's just quickly write all these down. Present value, PMT. You get very good at remembering these after a while. Future value, PY, CY. So let's work through this. Our N is going to be 25 years. This one's compounding monthly, so be very careful there. It's got monthly repayments, so I might just put these in so I remember. The interest rate, this is the original, like the nominal interest rate, so this is 6.33%. All right, the present value, so if we look back, add any initial fees, such as the establishment fees, to the principal. So we've got to add our establishment fee of $600 to the principal of $415,000. Now this is positive because at the start we're taking this money, although technically we're not taking the 600, I guess, but you know, that's what we're doing here. We're leaving this as a positive. The PMT is what we're calculating here. The future value, we're repaying the entirety of the loan. So now we've got a PMT. That's going to be probably approximately equal to, I can get rid of that if I don't need it, 25 by 12, 6.33, 415, these need to be 12s. That needs to be 415, 600. So we get a PMT that's approximately negative 2762.18. So then what we need to do with this, we look at step 3, is we need to add any regular fees such as service fees to these repayments. So this is to repay the loan, but we've also got to repay that extra $12. So we've got to add $12 to this, but we've got to be very careful because this is a negative number. So either you can make it positive, add 12, and then put it back into this step as a negative. That's one option. Or you just got to make this more negative. So I tend to just subtract the 12, but that's something just to be very, very aware of, that you need to increase the repayments by 12. So this needs to be $2,774.18. So that's just something to be very, very aware of. So I do that in the next step. So the interest rate is going to be what we're calculating, present value. It's the original loan. This was 25 by 12, wasn't it? Yep. The PMT, now this is where it's really, really important that we're looking at. So the PMT is negative $2,762.18. Add on the regular fee of $12. Now, remember, I just need to make it more negative, so I'm going to subtract the 12 to make that what it needs to be. The future value, we're paying the entire loan, and then the PY and CY still remain at 12. So that's how we do step 3. Now, it's really, really important. If you're not really comfortable with just working this out and going, you know, I need to make this 2,774. To do that, I need to subtract 12. Change this to a positive, add your 12, and then make it negative when you put it back in. That's my advice to that. So let's go ahead here and calculate this interest. All right. And this gives us a comparison rate of approximately 6.392% per annum. So therefore, comparison rate, in a test or something, I would just leave it like this personally, but I'm just going to write it here so we know this is the comparison rate. Rate of loan C is approx 6.392% per annum. Now, if you're wondering why I left it to 3 decimal places where this one was 2, it's actually because I knew that this one was 6.39. So when we start comparing this, we can immediately say that this is lower than this, which is great. Sorry, this here is lower than this, which is great. So it suggests that loan A is better than loan C. But loan B is lower than them all, which suggests loan B is the best option that we should take. And this is generally true. But there's more that we need to consider when we're doing this. And this is now where we start looking at, okay, this is how we get the comparison rate, but that doesn't necessarily mean that loan B is just immediately the best. And things to consider here are things like how flexible is the loan? You know, so loan A suggested here that it's completely flexible. You know, the repayments are completely negotiable in how often you're making these repayments. Now, depending which order you're watching these, we know that one of the interest saving strategies that we can use is to make more frequent repayments, where these ones are fixed. They can't make more frequent repayments. So you lose that interest saving strategy. That's one example. But the other thing that you've got to be really, really careful of here is This one's compounding monthly. This one's compounding monthly. So the comparison rate that we're using to compare here is valid because the compounding periods are the same. So we can immediately see here, because the compounding periods are the same, that loan A is going to be better than loan C, although only just. Okay, so you might still consider, which one's going to be more flexible, loan A. So clearly we would choose loan A rather than loan C here. All right, that's obvious. But between loan A and loan B is not so obvious. So yes, the comparison rate of loan B is lower. However, it's compounding quarterly, which means that we can't just take the comparison rate here, compare that, and then conclude that loan B is definitely going to be best. So I guess it begs the question, what do we do? How do we determine which one's going to be better between loan A and loan B? We can immediately rule out loan C. We're not going to take loan C, but which one is going to be better for us between loan A and loan B? So let's have a look at that. So here's our comparison rates. All right. We immediately know that we can rule out loan C. So let's just rule a line through it. All right. We can rule that out. What's going to be better between loan A and loan B? Well, to do that, what we actually need to do is calculate how much interest are we going to pay in total for each loan. Either that or we'll just work out how much you're going to pay in total. I like the interest in total. So let's have a look at that. So let's start working out. It's going to be quite complex here. So loan A, we've already got the PMT. No, we don't. That's loan B. So loan A, we're actually going to have to calculate the PMT now. So I can borrow the PMT from the previous question for loan B. But loan A, the PMT, let's just quickly work through. So it's compounding monthly, so it's 25 by 12. The interest rate, now it's important when we're doing this, we're using the actual interest rate here, so like the nominal interest rate, I should say. So this is 6.39%. The present value, that is going to be the loan, so 415. The PMT, that's what we're after. We need the payments so we can calculate the total interest. The future value, it's going to be 0. PY is 12, CY is also 12 here. So the PMT is 6.39. So it's going to be approximately equal to negative $2,773.66. Now, I'm not going to bother interpreting it because I'm just getting this to calculate what the total interest is going to be. So total interest. Now, if you remember, this is equal to the total repayments. So we're making 12 repayments per year for 25 years, and each repayment is going to be $2,773.66 approximately. Subtract, once again, you don't need the brackets, but that's just my habit. Subtract away the original loan, so that's $415,000. Okay, so now that we're doing that, we can see that the total interest is going to be approximately equal to hang on, let's just use the other calculator since it's already in the screen where I can just whack this in. 12 by 25 by 2,773 and 66. Subtract away $415,000. So the total interest is approximately $417,098. All right. Now, if we compare that with loan B, what we need to do is calculate the total interest. Now, the reason why I don't need to worry about calculating the PMT is I've already actually done that. So let's go and borrow the PMT from the previous, which is negative 8320.75. So 8320 and 75. That was right, wasn't it? Yep. Now you have to be careful here because these are quarterly repayments for 25 years. So it's times 4 by 25. All right, they'll give you total repayments for the loan. Subtract away the original loan amount, which is going to be 415,000. So therefore, our total interest here is going to be approximately equal to 8320.75 by 4 by 25. Subtract the 415,000. This is a total interest of approximately $417,075. So what we now do is we compare how much total you're going to pay over and above the loan throughout that 25 years. Now you can see here that loan B is in fact lower than loan A. But not by much. I mean, it's what, $23 difference over 25 years? We would say that that difference there is pretty negligible. All right, that's a really important word that we're looking at. Yes, loan B technically is better than loan A. However, the difference over 25 years is basically nothing. All right, it's negligible. It's not nothing, but it's negligible. I mean, over 25 years, a few $100s is still negligible, and yet this is only $23 difference. So we start going, okay, well, which one would you choose? They're basically the same. All right, at this point, we can conclude they're basically the same. So which one would you actually choose? So you go back here and you look at it and go, well, loan A is completely flexible. All right, has no setup fees. It's got no monthly fees. I mean, loan B doesn't have monthly fees either, but it's also flexible in what you can do. It's negotiable. So which one would you probably choose? I would probably choose loan A. Yes, technically loan A is going to cost me an extra $23 of interest over 25 years. The difference is negligible, it's much more negotiable, and I can use interest saving strategies with loan A. It's very clear that I can, that I probably couldn't use with loan B, which means that I could probably make up for that interest well and truly with that loan A choice. So at this point, you would conclude that loan A is the better choice of these options. So I guess to summarize with this, obviously we have the step-by-step of being able to calculate comparison rates. Comparison rates are very useful. Okay, they are very useful to be able to calculate and compare loans, especially when the loans are compounding at the same rate. All right, it allows us to take into account fee structures to be able to make a fair comparison. Where comparison rates are no longer just the thing that we can use is when things compound at different rates. All right, when things start compounding differently, we need to start considering, well, how much are we going to repay in total for the loan, and make a comparison of that, and then make a decision about, well, is that difference really meaningful? You know, is it significant? And if it's not significant, then you start looking at the actual structure of the loan itself to determine which loan is actually going to be best for you.